Splash is a 1984 comedy romance film starring Daryl Hannah as a mermaid and Tom Hanks as John Candy's brother. I saw this movie the other day and it was the first time I've watched it in several years. And I followed it up by the 1988 sequel Splash 2, and oh boy, do I have a lot to say. I love this scene in the movie. Tom Hanks asks Daryl Hannah,
"What's your name?"
It's hard to say in English.
Well, just say it in your language.
And so she responds with like these dolphin sounds that are so screechingly loud that they break the screens on old CRT TVs. This is rather impressive. You can break glass with your voice, but it has to be at a certain pitch.
It's not easy to do. It is a crystal wine glass. You know, when you and rub your finger along the top, it's a good, expensive, big, heavy type glass. It's to do with the resonation. You know, I get my voice to hit that exact pitch.
She's making a pitch that I don't think is humanly possible. Now, I get it. She's not human. But she's also not a dolphin. She grows feet whenever she's on land, and then when she turns into the water, back to mermaid. And I find that more far-fetched than the idea that there could be a mermaid.
What are English names?
Well, there's millions of them, I guess. Linda, Kim, where are we? Madison. Elizabeth,
Madison.
Samantha.
Madison, I like Madison.
Well, Madison's not a name.
Now, as a viewer in the year 2024, I'm thinking, it's odd that Tom Hanks had never heard. Has he not heard of Madison Beer or WWE star Madison Rain? And that's the only two Madisons I know. But still, I know two. Now, here's the thing. The name Madison was not a name back then. It was almost non-existent on the list of names, and it was more likely to be a name for a boy. And then, from 1985 on, chart goes up. In 2005, it was the second most popular girl name in the United States. Now, you may have heard people use the term Madison Avenue just to refer to the ad industry, whether it's on that street or not. And that's because in the 1920s, a lot of the ad agencies were located on Madison Avenue in New York City. Now, Madison Avenue was named after somebody. It was the last name of President James Madison.
Thank you. Good woman, kindly,
You're
sir.
very tiny and effeminate.
We've had bad nutrition.
One of the things I noticed rewatching this film was this scene where they're at this ice rink. And this was not the Woolman rink that's outside of Rockefeller Center where you always see the famous skating every Christmas. And I had to look up, why was it? Why was this filmed in some smaller little odd rink? Well, this was a rink that was built for the production of this movie. Now, that was because in 1980, the concrete under the ice had buckled and they had closed down the ice rink. So this was done during the years where that wasn't even a possibility. Now let's go down a bit of a rabbit hole with this Woolman rink. Now the city had promised to fix it in 2 years and spend $4.9 million. Now that would have meant it would have been fixed by 1982, well in advance of the production of the movie Splash. But by 1987, they still hadn't fixed it. They had spent $12 million and they were promising to spend another $3 million. So then Donald Trump steps in. He says he'll fix it as long as he can have the contract on the rink and the laser rink in Central Park, and that he could ride around on the Zamboni. Now, there are a couple scenes in this movie that they shot somewhere in the Bahamas. Now, this was supposed to be Martha's Vineyard. The first scene is at the beginning of the movie. They have little child actors playing Tom Hanks's character and Daryl Hannah's character, and they first meet. And then they meet again as adults. Now, the reason that Disney decided to film in the Bahamas, pretending to be Massachusetts, was because they were already going to be filming there to get the underwater mermaid shots. They needed that water because it's crystal clear and you can film all the underwater stuff, and everybody is equipped for it there. And so they shot those at a place called Thunderball Grotto. This is where they filmed Thunderball.
James Bond is in operation. And what an operator he is in Ian Fleming Thunderball.
So while they were there, they scouted and found a beach to shoot it on. Now, Disney claims that this was filmed on Castaway Cay.
It is Disney's private island, and there's plenty to do for everyone, right, Daisy? Right, Donald? You can go swimming.
But the thing is, Disney didn't own this island until 1997. Now, I've looked at the entire island. I can't find anything that looks like that. But Disney has done a lot of work to the island. There have been several hurricanes, so maybe it was filmed there. But I think it's also possible that Disney likes to tell us a story. Now, Tom Hanks, for his part, gave an interview where he mentioned walking to the beach from his hotel, which wouldn't be possible if they were shooting on that island, which had no hotel. Again, it seems rather unlikely that they would have shot there, but you never know.
Okay, look.
What? You, well, that's big.
Now, the mold for this mermaid statue was actually originally made for the Disney film Herbie Goes Bananas. They had these ice sculptures, and one of them was of this mermaid. But in order to film the movie and not have the ice sculpture melt, it was actually made out of plastic. So they created this mold, and this was that mold. For many years, if you went to Disney MGM Studios and later, and today, Disney Hollywood Studios, you could see that fountain. Now, I've never been sure if this was the original or a replica since they had the mold. It may have been something where it was destroyed after the movie and then they said, hey, this is a hit. We've got this theme park. We could put it in the back lot. We're filming part 2 right here at the studio. Now, the area where this used to stand is now part of Galaxy's Edge. So this is long gone. I don't know where it is. I hope they saved it somewhere. Even if it's not the original from the movie, it has such a strong connection to the theme park that I feel it has value on its own. Now, there's a story that Michael Eisner really wanted to tie in Splash Mountain with the movie Splash, and that's why it's called Splash. There are reports that he wanted the Splash Mermaid to actually be in the ride.
And the executives at the studio were really excited about this very big hit. Well, can you put the mermaid in there? And I said, no, because she doesn't fit with Brer Rabbit. He said, well, at least then use the name. Splash Mountain.
This seems odd to me. The production of this ride started 3 years after this movie came out. However, in the movie, Tom Hanks sings Zippity Doo Dah 2 times.
Zippity Doo Dah! Mr. Mango on my shoulder. Ready? Dance with me.
So the sequel comes out in 1988 on television, and it's interesting, in the end of the first movie, she's very clear with Tom Hanks, you can never go back. You can never see John Candy again. And he goes into that water knowing he can never go back. Now, this one takes place shortly after the first movie. And she says, yeah, we could just go back. Let's just go back. And they just go back. And there seems to be no pushback on this at all. And they were all over the news. This was the biggest story. She was like a Bigfoot in New York City. Yet now they return. No one recognizes them. Throughout the entire movie, there's never somebody going, hey, aren't you the guy who was, hey, and you're the mermaid. Aren't you the mermaid that if we get you wet, you turn into a mermaid? Never. The whole film. Now, Daryl Hannah was replaced in this movie by Amy Yasbeck. Now, you may have seen Amy Yasbeck in a lot of films. She was in Pretty Woman, she was in The Mask, and she was in Problem Child. She was the wife of John Ritter at the time, and she was naturally a redhead, so they put her in a blonde wig for this film. Tom Hanks didn't return either, and we get Todd Waring playing his part. Now, Todd looks a lot like Tom Hanks and does a great job in the film. According to Wikipedia, he is best known for playing Tom Hanks's character in this, as well as in the TV series based on the Tom Hanks-Jackie Gleason movie, Nothing in Common. Now, Donovan Scott plays the John Candy character to a T. A lot of the movie was shot on the backlot of Disney MGM Studios, and this is the scene where they first pull up to see their house. And if you look closely, right behind them there, you can see the Golden Girls' house. You see that peak at the top? That's it down there. By the way, this movie, along with Ernest Saves Christmas, were filmed on the backlot before the park even opened. Another fun thing about this movie was they shot part of it at Epcot's Living Seas.
Well, it's hard to explain. We love the ocean, but not everyone can see the creatures down there. So we bring some of them up here to admire.
Now, the opening scenes of Splash 2 were filmed at Treasure Island, which is right in front of the Magic Kingdom. It used to be an attraction. They later called it Discovery Island. If you look closely in the background behind them, you can see the wreck of Captain Flint's ship, the Walrus, which was on display at Treasure Island at that time. Now, the villain of this movie is this Weird Yankovic looking scientist. He's doing experiments on a dolphin that they have in the Living Seas Pavilion that they call Salty. He's clearly evil and clearly modeled on Eugene Levy's character from the first movie, but I don't think he thinks she's a mermaid at all. There's never a mention of it. This is not the only follow-up to Splash. There's a remake that was made in Hong Kong in 1994 called Mermaid Gets Married. Here's my take on both films. The first film is a wonderful, well thought out, beautiful, great movie. It's very funny. It's got a wonderful story. It has some emotional heartstring pulling that's really good. And I love looking at the scenery, whether they're on the beach or in downtown Manhattan. All of it looks interesting. The sequel is a cheap made-for-TV movie. That said, I loved it. I had a blast watching it. I loved watching all the scenes at the Disney parks. I thought all three of the actors were really good in their parts and were really funny.
Whew. How are you?
Thirsty, can I have a drink?
Yeah, sure.
You guys may have heard of the mystery of the ghost in the movie, 3 Men and a Baby. Well, if you haven't, I dug into the whole history of it. I think Disney made up the concept of this ghost and told it to people so they would go out and rent the movie in anticipation of part 2 of 3 Men and a Baby. I think it was 3 men and a little lady. But I dug into that. I'm going to put that video right up here. Otherwise, YouTube says this is what is best for you, and I'll see you next time.